Of course, we're dealing a lot with these issues, which are in the core of this very interesting conference, and the time could not be better for such an endeavor. If you have in mind the two breathtaking global events in these days, the nuclear accident in Japan, Fukushima, and the uproar in Libya, both give us very fundamental messages in dealing with the energy future of our societies. First, that nuclear energy cannot be the answer to the energy needs of a growing world population, and second, that we have to reduce our dependency from oil. So I'll start with, and I have been asked very short notice to jump in and to join the speakers list, and after listening the day to these brilliant speakers, I had in mind the old joke that everything is said but not by me, so I decided to switch to a more fundamental menu and to the broader picture. Yeah, go back. The challenge. What is the challenge we are talking about if we are talking about the great transition or the great transformation of our industrial civilization, of our industrial society, towards the sustainable path, the sustainable development model? First, we are going to cross the limits to growth, to come back to the famous study of the Club of Rome in 1972 with respect of the regeneration capacity of the Earth system, mainly the absorption capacity of the atmosphere in terms of CO2 and other greenhouse gases, the water resources of the Earth, and the topsoil. Michael Braungart already reached out to that aspect in his opening speech this morning. Climate change is only the maybe most dramatic signal that we are tipping the limits to growth of the Earth system. It's taking place more rapidly than initially anticipated. Shortage of natural resources, which originally was in the center of the limits to growth study in 1972. The history of the industrial society and of this enormous economic growth and the increase of wealth over the last 200 years, it was based on the use of resources which had been stored over millions of years in the surface of the Earth system, especially oil, particularly oil, which is still the source for roughly 1/3 of total global energy consumption, and a variety of industrial metals we are exploiting for industrial use. Over the next decades, at the same time when the natural resources are becoming more and more exhausted, global economic growth will accelerate in a dimension we never faced than before. Referring to the energy forecast of the International Energy Agency, energy demand will double until 2050. driven mainly by two factors. First, of course, the increase of the world population from now 7 billion, roughly 7 billion, to at least 9 billion until 2050. And secondly, the demands and desires of billions of people which still live in poverty today and who now are striving, reaching out for kind of lifestyle which was created in the West. And that will, these two factors and these two tendencies together will boost economic growth in an enormous dimension. So if this status quo, this kind of growth based on the status quo would happen, we will stumble into an era of sharpening resource conflicts. This is not just an environmental problem. This is a problem of peace and war, at least, because there is a real risk, a real danger that we will fall back into kind of Darwinistic competition for diminishing resources. So if no growth is no real option, how to expand the limits to growth? This is the core challenge, to expand the limits to growth. And basically there are two ways to do that. First, by increased efficiency. An efficiency revolution, according to Ernst Ulrich von Weizsäcker and others, you may know the famous formula factor 5. And if you're looking to the history of the industrial system, in the last 200 years, we increased labor productivity by a factor of around about 25, productivity of labor. And now we have to focus, to concentrate all the innovation capacities, the scientific dynamics of our societies to increase to energy efficiency and resource efficiency in general, to gain time. Doing more, gaining more from less resources will gain time for the second main challenge, leapfrogging towards a solar-based circular flow economy. So going green is not about more or less of the same, it's about revolutionary change. And this is, I think, the basic assumption that we are entering an era of a revolutionary transition, of a new quality, in terms not only of technologies, also in rebuilding our infrastructure and of changing our culture, our consumption patterns, and our lifestyle. We are facing the beginning of a new era, a historical turn from fossil fuel-based economic growth and limited natural resources to renewable energies and materials, from exploiting the past, the resources which have been accumulated in the past, to an economy living from the present. And the present, this is mainly the influx of the sun, solar energy, which is also the base of all kind of organic growth on our planet. From linear production and consumption chains to recycling, redesign of products, reuse of all kinds of materials, changing economic patterns from leasing to leasing instead of buying stuff. I call that the return to sender principle. Switching from resource intensity to resource efficiency, and to quote the German philosopher Ernst Bloch, from moving in nature like an army in a hostile environment to learning from nature, to a kind of industry based on biotechnologies and co-evolution with nature. So, for me, this is not a story about threats, it's a story about opportunities. First, and this is the basic ethical challenge we are facing, we have to preserve Earth as a human-friendly environment for coming generations, and to leave it, if possible, in a better condition than we inherited it from our parents. But the second, transition towards renewable energy sources will improve energy security. At the same time, it will divert trillions of dollars now being spent to oil-based autocracies like in Iran, Saudi Arabia, Russia, Venezuela, to domestic jobs and services. Third, going green will offer big opportunities to entrepreneurs and workers alike, as you can see by what happened in Germany within the last decade. Today, there are about 1.9 million jobs in the green sector in Germany, about 300,000 alone in the renewable energy sector, and we are confident that over the next 10 years, the next decade, these figures will double. Of course, this great transformation is not just a story which could be limited to Europe and the United States and the old industrial world. We have to go global with greening the economy, and to include the developing world in this paradigm shift to a new kind of economy is very much an issue of a fair modus of sharing burdens and opportunities. If we want to turn around global greenhouse gas emissions by 2020 and cut them by 50% until the midst of the century, it's essential that the emerging economies are ready to cap their greenhouse gas emissions in the short term and to reduce them in the long term. And in our view, the key instrument for that is a binding international cap and trade system for CO2 emissions based on equal per capita emission rights. This will help to raise funds to be distributed to developing countries. And beyond that, we need further agreements on technological and financial transfers to developing countries, and I will give you an example. The first of 4 key projects for, I would say, pioneering projects for this kind of green transition. Desertec, a project already being developed between German, European companies and partners in the Middle East, using the solar power potential of deserts, large-scale installation of highly effective solar thermal power stations in the Sahara. The potential for solar power in the desert zones of North Africa is huge, and of course this is also the case with deserts in other continents. It's more than enough to supply the energy needs of the respective partner countries, as well as to meet a substantial portion of Europe's electricity needs. So this, in our view, is a very promising project, not only in energy terms, but also in developing cooperation, peaceful cooperation, and kind of joint integrated energy system between North Africa and Europe. The second key project, European Smart Supergrid. This is about replacing the outdated baseload model for providing electrical power and replacing it by an integrated network of renewable energy sources. Stability in energy supply will not be longer provided by large-scale coal and nuclear power plants, but by the network in itself, combining wind energy and wave energy from our coast regions, solar power from the sun belt of southern Europe and North Africa, geothermal energy from southeast Europe, bioenergy, especially biogas from the vast agricultural areas in Central Eastern Europe in a combined net. And the third key project, which was already discussed today, e-mobility, to reinvent sustainable urban mobility, replacing the private car-based model through an integrated e-mobility system with modern, attractive public transport facilities, car-to-go systems, biking, electrical or not, and walking. The effect of this transition will be less emissions, regaining urban public space, which is now occupied by cars, and making inner cities more attractive as living places for middle classes, and by that reducing urban sprawl. And the last key project I would like to introduce is greening the tax system. Given the importance of the giving the importance of the price system in a market economy, it is key to make emissions and the consumption of limited natural resources more expensive, and to switch from taxing labor income, which is now the base of the public funding, to taxing emissions and the consumption of natural resources like fossil fuels, uranium, minerals, and land use. And in combination of these big investment projects, I think we can gain the dynamics to speed up the transition towards a sustainable economy and more of that sustainable society for the future. Thank you.
Who has a question? Okay, Maura from Los Angeles.
Hello, my name is Maura O'Connor. I'm the chairman of the board of the Los Angeles Economic Development Corporation. I thought your comments, particularly on tax policy, were fascinating. I would be interested in how likely you think that will be practically implemented politically here, and over what time period?
We started to do that already in the late 90s, introducing eco-taxes in Germany in different variations for mineral fuels, fuels based on mineral oil, and electrical energy based on coal. It turned out to be, for I would say, in the first step, quite effective in promoting more energy efficiency, reducing the average fuel consumption of cars, and the second variation, we introduced it in Germany and now all over Europe, is the CO2 emissions trading system, which now turns into the second stage, auctioning most of the emission permits, including the whole energy system and most of the CO2 emitting industries. So this also changed the economic incentive system for the industries. I would say this were only the early steps. We now have to continue in rebuilding our system of public funding, not only using additional eco-taxes as another source for public spending, but really replacing taxes on labor revenue, labor-based revenue to taxing resources. Yeah. So, but in general, I would say we already proved that it is feasible.
Another question in your mind? In front, please, microphone one to this gentleman, Willy.
Just one question about Desertec and related projects. We've seen increased vulnerability and fragility in systems the last time now, and how to react to this. Shouldn't we take into account more local solutions for this?
I think there is no contradiction, or we should not build up a contradiction between local and transnational solutions. If we really want to speed up the transformation of our energy system, you know, we now in Germany have around about 70% of our power generation, electrical power generation, based on renewable energies. And if we want to speed it up beyond 40–50%, I think we have to go both ways to increase decentralized renewable energy production, local renewable energies, and at the same time to build up a trans-European network using the comparative advantages of the different renewable energy sources in the different European countries. So to use the European diversity to create a more cost-effective energy system. And regarding the Middle East countries, I'm not a friend of autarky in the sense of decoupling us from our political environment, from our neighborhoods, be it in Eastern Europe or be it in North Africa. The other way around, I think we have to stabilize and we have to support them in a sustainable way of development, in a sustainable way of overcoming poverty and creating opportunities for millions and millions of young people in these areas by helping them to create a sustainable energy system and to overcome their dependency from oil too. So I think this is a win-win strategy, and we both, I would say, by three reasons: by environmental, economic, and political reasons. we want to promote this kind of transnational renewable energy networks.